Yo, what's up guys, it's Suraj from Tech Devoted, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my Sony a6300. I know I've already made several videos about this camera, but this is hopefully a proper review. We're going to be settling matters once and for all. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about this camera in this video and letting you know if it is worth buying in 2018 or if it'll be worth buying even as we go into 2019. And spoiler alert, it is. I don't want to make this a oh you have to watch till the end to find out the answer video. So yeah, I gave you the answer you were looking for. The camera is worth every damn penny even in 2018 in my opinion. But let's now dive deeper. Let's talk about why I think it's worth it and what kind of needs the camera best caters to. I'm going to be speaking from a video standpoint. I do click pictures now and then, but video is still my main forte. Of course, there will be video samples along the way on the screen, and there will also be a show reel at the end of the video that was entirely shot on this camera, so be sure to stick by till the end. So let me start by talking about some not so obvious pros, and the first on that list is USB charging. Do you have any idea how convenient it is to be able to charge my camera using a power bank inside a backpack while traveling from say one shoot location to another? Do you have any idea how relieving it is to know that if my battery runs out, I can just pull out my power bank, connect it to the camera and pull juice from the power bank and basically have unlimited battery? It truly is an amazing feature. It's definitely one of my favorites. It is kind of underrated in my opinion, and none of the competitors to the a6300 such as the ATD or even the M50, I might be wrong, but as far as I know, none of the competitors to this camera have USB charging. USB charging also kind of fixes, in my opinion, the not so great battery life. So yeah, it's definitely a plus for the Sony. Another plus for the a6300 is its size. The camera is so small, people end up thinking it's a point and shoot camera, which can be both a good and a bad thing. Good because there isn't nearly as big an intimidation factor, there isn't nearly as pressure. If you're shooting animals or people, it's much easier on them. Whereas it can be a bad thing because certain times you might not be taken very seriously with this camera on client shoots and things like that, unless they're aware of the whole mirrorless revolution. But the point is that this camera is so small that with the kit lens attached, it can fit in my jeans pocket. Let me just reiterate that is an APS-C sized 100 megabits per second 4K recording camera in my pant pocket. Pretty crazy if you ask me. But as a result of the small size also comes some problems, overheating being a top of that list. So overheating, let's talk about it. I'm going to give you a real life example. So the other day I was shooting a stand-up comedy session. It was a 30-minute session and my camera was the A camera since it could shoot in 4K. So I set my camera up on the tripod, started recording, and everything was going great, everything was going smooth until the 18th minute. Around the 18th minute, the camera flashed the overheating symbol on the screen, and just minutes after that happened, the camera shut down. I could do certain makeshift adjustments such as using ice. Yes, I did it. Such as using ice, and I was able to pull off another 5 or 6 minutes of recording, giving me a total of about 25 or 26 minutes of the total 30-minute session. Fortunately, the comedian wasn't too mad because he was doing the same show the next day as well, and we were covering that too. But just so you guys know, before the stand-up comedy, the day before the stand-up comedy, I did try to record for 30 minutes in 4K at home. And guess what? The camera could do it. I wouldn't say it crushed through the limit. The overheating symbol did flash around 28 minutes of recording, but it could like get past the 30-minute recording time that I wanted it to. So I don't know what quite made the difference when it came to the stand-up versus recording at home. But yeah, under certain conditions, which again I don't know what exactly they are, you can get past 30 minutes of 4K recording. But back to the stand-up, it was day 2 and we were recording the show again, and this time I was fully geared up. I had with me an ice pack and a USB fan, and using those two things at constant intervals from minute 1 of recording, I could crush through the 30-minute recording time that I wanted the camera to basically crush through in 4K, of course, and the best part, it did not even flash the overheating symbol. Now, using ice pack might not be that safe, and holding a USB fan might sound like a bit of effort, but honestly, I don't really do long form content that frequently. This particular event was an exception, so not really a huge deal to me. So yeah, I don't have a definitive answer about when it overheats in 4K, but just know that under certain conditions, under best case scenario, it can get through 30 minutes of 4K recording. As for overheating in 1080p, well, I haven't seen any. I have recorded for over an hour at a single stretch, and there wasn't any kind of overheating. So, if you're concerned about 1080p, don't be. Now, before I go any further, I want you guys to take a moment and check out HeyPanda.store. They make really cool, well-fitting filmmaking t-shirts at very affordable rates, and yes, the one I'm wearing currently is also from them, so definitely check out their website. Anyway, back to the positives of the camera, and another pro on my list is the autofocus on this camera. It's no dual pixel autofocus, but I've seen side-by-side comparisons and it comes pretty close. Now, of course, this also depends on the lens you pair it up with. Native lenses, of course, work amazingly well, but certain third-party brands such as Sigma also work just fine. Now, speaking of lenses, I for one personally haven't felt that, oh, I wish there was a certain XYZ lens available for this system, but one common complaint amongst many A6300 owners or users is the fact that there isn't as many lenses. I see where they're coming from. There definitely isn't as many lenses. So yeah, that is definitely something that you should consider, because in my opinion, lenses is where the long-term investment is. It's 2018, which means it's been more than 2 years since this camera was first released, and I might be wrong, but even today there is no camera in the ballpark of $1,000 that offers the same resolution and same frame rate options as this camera. I'm talking about 4K at 30 frames per second and Full HD at 120 frames per second, both really amazing options if you ask me. Now, you probably heard this a million times, but the 4K on this camera is actually a 6K downscale to 4K image. So the quality is actually stunningly sharp. It's mind-blowing how sharp it gets. As for 1080p, I actually think it falls short in comparison to other cameras. I do use it for slow motion, of course, but other than that, I almost always shoot in 4K, including this video. This is being shot in 4K. However, I might downscale it and make it a 1080p video, because this is probably going to be a long video. But otherwise, if you're picking this camera up, I would recommend shooting in 4K. What else? I love the viewfinder on this camera. I definitely prefer electronic over optical now. I love that I can see the pictures in real time. I love that I can see the exposure changing in real time. And I love that I can navigate the menus using the viewfinder itself. And speaking of those menus, I wouldn't blame you if you think it's a mess. I've gotten used to it now, but in my initial days with this camera, it felt like a freaking maze in there. So yeah, the viewfinder is indeed amazing, but what about the LCD monitor? Well, the LCD monitor, it's okay, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's half flippable. I know that is a huge concern for a lot of people. It used to be one for me as well, but then I've kind of adapted to it. I have ways around it. And to be honest, I don't really feel the need for the flip out screen that often, because the camera is pretty reliable due to its amazing autofocus. So more often than not, I just do one test shot for checking the composition and then immediately start rolling. So yeah, life would have been much easier with a complete flippable screen, but even without it, it's not half bad. You know what else isn't half bad? My Instagram feed. Check it out, it's at suraj.jpeg. Most pictures there have been clicked with this camera, and if you have any other concerns regarding the A6300, that is the best place to get in touch with me. Another amazing feature of this camera is its low light performance. Nothing too scientific here, but I can easily go up to 3200 ISO and even 4000 ISO in some cases, and the image is still perfectly usable. Now, autofocus isn't that great in low light, but the image itself is definitely usable, not very grainy. There's one final thing I like about this camera, and that is all the little pro features that it comes with. I'm talking about zebras, focus peaking, all the different flat profiles and things like that. They really add to the experience. I also want to talk about a couple of more cons. First being that this camera is a slow camera. Now by slow, I mean like the actual performance. It's not that responsive. Turning on takes a good second, turning off takes a good second. Heck, even recording starts almost a complete second after you hit the record button, which might not sound like a big deal, but if you're vlogging, if you're in the moment, oftentimes the audio in the first second or so gets cut off because the camera starts recording late. Rolling shutter is also an actual thing. It exists and it's pretty bad. It's never affected my usage, but I would imagine that in things like sports or something very fast-paced, this would make a difference. And that about wraps it up. Just to summarize, I'm gonna list the pros and the cons on the screen right now. So this camera is great for pretty much all kinds of video work, corporate videos, short films, documentaries, YouTube videos, which is what I actually mostly use it for. It's good for all those kind of shooting scenarios. I would not recommend this camera to those who desperately need a flip out screen or those who want a really good color straight out of camera. Let's face it, the colors on this camera are not that great. I shoot in flat, so I have the flexibility and I get to color grade, but otherwise the colors, the default colors are not that great. So yeah, that's about the Sony a6300 in 2018. So I'm going to leave you guys with my filmmaking show reel, which was entirely shot on this camera. So that should give you a good idea of what this thing is capable of. So if you like this one, give it a like. If you did not, vote it down. Let me know in the comments what you didn't like about the video. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. It's been Suraj. Thanks so much for watching. Take it easy and stay devoted.